To create EC2, log into AWS console with your username and password. We are going to create new on-demand EC2 virtual machine instance, so in the search box type EC2. After logged in, select the region in which you want to create your EC2. Best practice for selecting region is always select region nearby user access. Click on Launch Instance to create new EC2 instance. Once you click Launch Instance, AWS allows you to select AMI image for your instance. Amazon Machine Image (AMI) is a template that contains a software configuration, for example, an operating system, an application server, and applications. From an AMI, you launch an instance, which is a copy of the AMI running as a virtual server in the cloud. You can launch multiple instances of an AMI. From the list of AMI, select AMI as per your requirement. In this practical, we are going to create Windows EC2 instance, so we have selected Windows AMI image. Now it's time to select an instance type of your EC2. You can select instance type as per your requirements. There is a total 5 instance type. 1. General purpose instances. General purpose instances provide a balance of compute, memory, and networking resources. 2. Compute optimized instances. Compute optimized instances are ideal for compute-bound applications that benefit from high-performance processors. 3. Memory optimized instances. Memory optimized instances are designed to deliver fast performance for workloads that process large data sets in memory. 4. Storage optimized instances. Storage optimized instances are designed for workloads that require high, sequential read and write access to very large data sets on local storage. They are optimized to deliver tens of thousands of low-latency, random I/O operations per second to applications. 5. Accelerated computing instances. You require high processing capability. You'll benefit from using accelerated computing instances, which provide access to hardware-based compute accelerators such as graphics processing units, GPUs, or field programmable gate arrays, FPGAs. Accelerated computing instances enable more parallelism for higher throughput on compute-intensive workloads. Once you select instance type, you can also select instance size, for example, T2 Nano having 1 vCPU and 0.5 GB of RAM, T2 Micro having 1 vCPU and 1 GB of RAM. Select instance size as per your workload requirements. Also note, AWS charge you as per your selected instance size. For our practice, we are selecting general purpose T2 micro instance because AWS giving us 750 hours per month free for trial account. In step 3, the first option is to select number of instances you want to create. Suppose if you type 5, AWS will create 5 instances with the same AMI image on same instance type and size. By default, it will create 1 instance. We are not going to talk about other option of step 3, because we will talk about it after learning VPC chapter. Default selection is okay for us, just click next storage option. Step 4. Add storage. Here we can select the storage options for our EC2 instance. When we create new EC2, AWS provides us 30 GB of storage for Windows instance and 8 GB storage for Linux instance by default, which is known as instance store volume. Please note, instance store volume is non-persistent, means if you stop or terminate your instance, data in instance store volume will be lost. For permanent data storage, we can select Elastic Block Storage EBS volumes. AWS provides us the different type of EBS volumes like HDD, SSD, high performance SSD, etc. You will learn about all storage options in our upcoming session AWS Storage. For this practice, instance store volume is enough for us because we are not going to use this EC2 in the production environment. A tag is a label that you assign to an AWS resource. Each tag consists of a key and an optional value, both of which you define. Tags enable you to categorize your AWS resources in different ways, for example, by purpose, owner, or environment. This is useful when you have many resources of the same type. You can quickly identify a specific resource based on the tags you've assigned to it. Tagging is optional. AWS Security Groups are associated with Ec2 instances and provide security at the protocol and port access level. Each security group, working much the same way as a host-based firewall, contains a set of rules that filter incoming and outgoing traffic of Ec2 instance. You can create a security group and add rules that reflect the role of the instance that's associated with the security group. For example, an instance that's configured as a web server needs security group rules that allow inbound HTTP and HTTPS access, and a database instance needs rules that allow access for the type of database, such as access over port 3306 for MySQL. When we create EC2, by default, AWS creates a new security group for each EC2 instance. There are two types of rules you can define: incoming rules and outgoing rules. The default incoming rule for security group depends on an operating system of your EC2. For example, if you have Microsoft Windows EC2 instance, the default rule is RDP port TCP 3389 is allowed from anywhere. If you have Linux instance, SSH port 22 is allowed from anywhere. This rule is required to manage our EC2 instance from a remote network. Default outgoing rule is allowed all traffic. You can also change or edit security group rules afterward. We are not going to change anything here. We will talk more about it in our upcoming session VPC security. As per current rule define, we can able to connect our EC2 through the remote desktop protocol. Step 7 is the final step in which you can review all settings of your EC2. Amazon EC2 uses public key cryptography to encrypt and decrypt login information. Public key cryptography uses a public key to encrypt a piece of data, such as a password, then the recipient uses the private key to decrypt the data. The public and private keys are known as a key pair. Here we will create a new key pair for our EC2 instance, and we will also download the private key. This private key will be used to decrypt the password of our Windows instance. Note: Amazon EC2 doesn't keep a copy of your private key. Therefore, if you lose a private key, there is no way to recover it. If you lose the private key for an instance store-backed instance, you can't access the instance. You should terminate the instance and launch another instance using a new key pair. So it is important that you store the private key in a safe place until you change the administrator password. After downloading your private key, click on Launch Instance. It's done. AWS is launching our instance. Now you can check the status of a newly created instance by clicking an instance ID. Our instance is initializing now. It will take 5 to 10 minutes to complete the process. Once the process will be over, the status will be changed from pending to running. To connect our newly created EC2 instance using remote desktop, we need to download ready-to-use a remote desktop configuration file. We have downloaded a remote desktop file to connect our EC2. But we also required a password of our EC2. To get the password, click on Get Password. Once you click Get Password, it will give you the name of the private key file that we downloaded earlier. Now we need to give the location of our private key by clicking Choose File. Now click Decrypt Password to get the password for our EC2. Here is the password for our EC2. Copy this password. Now on Remote Desktop Configuration file, which we have downloaded earlier, click Connect. Paste copied password here and we will connect our Ec2 instance.